My mother died, and I thought the hardest part was over. The funeral, the silence, the empty house. But I was wrong. Because 3 days later, I found her phone, still charged, still locked, still holding something. There was one file, hidden, not in photos, not in messages, buried, labeled only. Don't open. And I didn't. Not immediately, because something about it felt wrong, like it wasn't meant for me, like it wasn't supposed to exist. But eventually, I played it, and the first thing I heard was a man's voice, saying my name. Clara, if you're hearing this, you deserve the truth. And in that moment, everything I thought I knew about my life started breaking. My name is Clara Whitmore. I'm 28 years old, and this happened in Portland, Oregon. Before we continue, if you like deep emotional stories with shocking truths, make sure you subscribe. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is. I read every single comment. Now let me take you back. Because this wasn't just a voicemail, it was the beginning of something much bigger. After the funeral, the house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a place holding memories that didn't belong to me. Everything was still there. Her books, her coffee mug, her voice, gone. And I stayed there longer than I needed to. Not because I wanted to, because I didn't know where else to go. Grief doesn't feel loud at first. It feels quiet, heavy, like something pressing down slowly. And in that silence, you start noticing things you didn't before. Details, patterns, gaps. I found her phone in a drawer, not on the table, not where she usually kept it. Hidden, carefully, like she didn't want it to be seen immediately, and that alone felt strange, because she wasn't secretive. Not with me. At least, I thought she wasn't. The screen lit up, battery still alive, and for a second, I just stared at it, because something about touching it felt like crossing a line. It wasn't easy to find. It wasn't in her gallery, not in messages, not in anything obvious. It was inside a locked folder, something she had never used before, and when I opened it, there was only one file, just one. No name, no date, just a note attached to it. Don't open. And that warning didn't stop me. It made me hesitate, but not stop. When I pressed play, the room felt smaller, like everything was closing in. The audio crackled slightly, then a voice. Male, older, calm. Clara, if you're hearing this, I froze. Because this wasn't random. This was intentional. You deserve to know who you really are. And in that second, something inside me shifted. Because those words don't belong in a normal message. She wasn't supposed to keep you? That's what he said next. Clear, direct, no emotion. And my mind didn't react immediately, because sometimes truth doesn't hit all at once. It pauses, like it's waiting for you to understand it. And when it did, I felt it. Cold, sharp, unavoidable. She's not your real mother. That sentence echoed longer than anything else, because it didn't just change one thing, it changed everything. Every memory, every moment, every assumption. And suddenly, the person I had just buried felt unfamiliar, like I had lost someone I never fully knew. At the end of the recording, there was a number. No name, no explanation, just digits, and a final line. If you want the truth, call. That's it. No pressure, no urgency, just an option. And I sat there, staring at it. Because calling that number meant stepping into something I couldn't undo. I waited, hours, maybe longer, because part of me wanted to ignore it, pretend it didn't exist, go back to what I knew. But another part, the louder part, needed answers. Because once doubt enters your life, it doesn't leave quietly. It stays, growing, expanding, until you face it. When I finally dialed, my hands didn't shake, but my chest felt tight, like something was about to shift permanently. It rang once, twice. Then a voice answered, the same voice from the recording. And before I could say anything, he said my name. I didn't think you'd call, he said. Pause. Then, she told me you died. And that sentence hit harder than anything before. Because now, this wasn't just about identity. This was about lies. Years of them, carefully maintained. And suddenly, I wasn't just questioning who I was questioning why. After the call ended, I didn't move. Not immediately. Because his words didn't feel like information. They felt like weight. She told me you died. That wasn't confusion. That wasn't a mistake. That was a decision. A deliberate one. And the more I replayed it in my head, the less it felt like I was discovering something new, and more like I was uncovering something that had been hidden on purpose. Hidden. Carefully. I couldn't rely on emotions anymore. Not on memories. Not on what I believed growing up. Because everything felt unstable now. So I did what people do when they don't trust the story anymore. I went looking for records, birth certificates, hospital files, anything official, anything that couldn't lie the way people do, because documents don't care how you feel. They just show what's real. And I needed facts. The first thing I noticed was the name. Not mine. Another name. Listed where mine should have been. Not a typo. Not an error. A completely different identity. And that's when something shifted again. Because this wasn't just hidden. It was replaced. Carefully. Intentionally. Like someone made sure I was never supposed to appear there at all. The hospital file wasn't complete. There were gaps, missing entries, dates that didn't connect properly. Information that should have been there wasn't. And the more I looked, the clearer it became. This wasn't accidental. This wasn't poor record keeping. This was removal. Selective. Precise. Like someone had gone through it and removed only what mattered. I called the number again. This time, not with hesitation, but with direction. He answered quicker, like he was expecting it. I found something, I said. There was a pause. Then he exhaled slowly. Then you're starting to see it. And for the first time, his voice didn't sound distant. It sounded careful, like he knew how far this went. She wasn't supposed to keep you, he said again. But this time, he didn't stop there. You were placed somewhere else first. That sentence didn't make sense immediately. Placed? Somewhere else? That's not how normal life works. That's not how families work. And suddenly, this wasn't just about identity. This wasn't normal. This was controlled. I thought you were gone, he said, until I heard otherwise, years later. And that's when it clicked. Not fully, but enough. I wasn't missing. I wasn't abandoned. And that difference changes everything. Because being lost is accidental. Being moved means someone decided it. I wasn't moved by accident. I was placed. There was one more file, hidden deeper, harder to access. Something I would have missed if I wasn't already looking. And when I opened it, I didn't feel curiosity. I felt something drop in my chest. Because by this point, I already knew whatever was inside wasn't going to make things easier. It was official, stamped, filed, undeniable, an official transfer record, not adoption, not custody, transfer, from one name to another, from one household to another. And right there, in the middle of that document, my name and a signature. my mother's. And that's when the truth settled. Fully. He wasn't wrong. The recording wasn't exaggerated. The gaps weren't mistakes. I wasn't lost. I wasn't abandoned. I was removed. And removal means purpose. It means intention. It means someone decided I shouldn't stay where I was. But the question that remained was worse than everything else. Why? If you've ever uncovered something that completely changed how you see your past, you already know how heavy this feels. Tell me in the comments, would you keep digging or stop here? I read every single comment. I didn't ask immediately, even after everything I found, even after the documents, the recordings, the gaps. I still avoided one question, because I already knew whatever answer came with it wouldn't be something I could ignore. But eventually, silence becomes heavier than truth. So I said it. Why was I removed? And who decided it? And for the first time since we started talking, he didn't answer right away. That pause wasn't confusion. It was calculation. It wasn't hesitation. It was wait. The kind of pause people take when they know the next sentence will change everything. I wasn't supposed to tell you this, he finally said, and that sentence alone told me enough. Because secrets that are protected this long aren't small. They're buried for a reason. And suddenly, I wasn't just looking for answers anymore. I was bracing for them. When it happened, he said slowly, this was never about you. That didn't make it better. If anything, it made it worse. Because being removed for something you did at least has a reason. But being removed for something that had nothing to do with you, that means you were part of a decision, not a consequence. And decisions are always deliberate. Then he said a name I had never heard in my life, not in stories, not in memories, not in anything connected to my past. And the way he said it made it clear this name wasn't random, like it was central to everything. That's who you were with first. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. There was a part of my life, completely erased, not forgotten, removed. You were born into a situation, he continued, that someone didn't want to continue. That sentence felt vague, too vague, like it was avoiding something bigger, and I could hear it in his voice. He wasn't lying, but he wasn't saying everything either, because truth, when it's this heavy, never comes all at once. It comes in layers. There were legal issues, he said, and decisions were made quickly. Words people use when they don't want to say the real thing. And I didn't stop him, because I knew, if I pushed too hard, he might stop talking completely. And right now, even incomplete truth was better than silence. That night, I went back to the files, not the obvious ones, the overlooked ones, the ones that didn't seem important before. And that's where I found it. A reference. Small, easy to miss, but connected to everything. Connected to the same name he mentioned. Linked to a case. A closed case. I accessed it slowly, carefully, because by now, I understood something important. The deeper I went, the harder it would be to come back. And when the file opened, I didn't scroll immediately. I just looked at the title. Because sometimes, one line is enough to prepare you. It wasn't about custody. It wasn't about adoption. It wasn't even about family. It was about investigation. An active case. Years ago. Closed. And the name attached to it was the same one he mentioned. And suddenly, this wasn't just about identity anymore. This was about something bigger, something official, something serious. The reason I was removed wasn't protection. It wasn't abandonment. It wasn't even a mistake. It was a decision made during an active investigation, a decision to separate me from something they didn't want connected. And the worst part? My mother knew, not just later, from the beginning. She didn't find me. She didn't save me. She was part of the decision. If this moment gave you chills, you're not alone. Tell me in the comments, would you confront her past or leave it buried? I read every single comment. I didn't wait days, didn't give myself time to overthink, because the longer you sit with truth like that, the harder it becomes to face it. So I went back. To the same house, the same door, the same place where I had lived my entire life, thinking it was built on something real. And as I stood there, I didn't feel nervous. I didn't feel angry. I felt clear. It was about confirming what I already knew. When I stepped inside, nothing had changed. The furniture, the walls, the quiet, everything looked exactly the way it always had. And that was the strangest part. Because nothing in that house had changed, except what I now knew about it. When everything inside you had already changed, I walked through it slowly, not searching, not rushing, just observing, like I was seeing it for the first time, not as a home, but as a place where something had been hidden in plain sight. I could still hear her, not literally, but in memory, the way she used to call my name, the way she spoke to me, the way she smiled. And somehow, that made it harder, not easier, because now, those memories didn't feel false. They felt incomplete, like I had only been given part of the truth, and the rest had been kept from me, carefully, for years. I had everything with me: the recording, the documents, the case file, proof, clear, undeniable. But I didn't take it out right away, because this moment wasn't about shock. It wasn't about catching someone off guard. It was about control. And I wasn't going to lose it now. And control comes from timing, not urgency. So instead, I sat down, calmly, like I had done 100 times before. She looked at me, like nothing had ever been wrong, like this was just another visit, another ordinary moment. And that told me something important. She didn't know. Not yet. So she spoke casually, asked simple questions, tried to keep everything normal. And I answered. Just enough. Just enough to let her believe this was still her version of reality. Then I said her name. Not Mom. Just her name. Not Mom. Not the way I always had. Just her name. And that small change shifted everything. Because words matter. Especially the ones you remove. She noticed immediately. I could see it. That pause. That confusion. That moment where something doesn't feel right. But you don't understand why yet. What's wrong? She asked. Softly, carefully. And that question was the moment everything started to shift. Not dramatic. Not intense. Just enough. And I looked at her. Really looked at her. Not as the person who raised me, but as someone who had made a decision about my life. Without me. I took out the phone slowly, not quickly, not forcefully, just placed it on the table between us. And for a second, she didn't react. Because objects don't carry meaning immediately, not until they're connected to something. And then I pressed play. Without saying a word, the recording started. The same voice, the same words. But this time, I wasn't alone. She heard it. Every sentence, every detail, every truth. She had tried to keep buried. And I didn't watch the screen. I watched her. Because the real story wasn't in the audio anymore. It was on her face. It was in her reaction. When it ended, she didn't argue, didn't interrupt, didn't deny. And that told me everything, because denial is immediate, instinctive, but silence means recognition. And in that moment, I didn't need more proof. I didn't need more answers, because the truth was already there, and she knew I knew. Between us. Clear. Unavoidable. After the recording ended, the silence stayed. Heavy. Uncomfortable. Real. She looked at the table first. Not at me. Like the answers might still be there, somewhere between the objects. Then slowly, she exhaled. I was going to tell you. Someday. That's what she said. Not denial, not anger, just justification. And that sentence alone told me everything. Because someday is where people place truths they never intend to reveal. I didn't react emotionally, didn't interrupt her, didn't ask why again, because I already had that answer, and repeating it wouldn't change anything. Instead, I stayed calm, the kind of calm that doesn't come from peace, but from clarity. Because once you truly understand something, you don't need to fight it anymore. You just need to decide what to do with it. You were safer here, she said, trying to rebuild something, trying to make it sound like protection. But protection doesn't erase identity. It doesn't rewrite records. It doesn't tell people you died. That's not protection. That's control. And those two things are not the same. And the difference between the two is something you can't explain away, no matter how softly you say it. She kept speaking, explaining, filling the silence with reasons, legal complications, danger, difficult choices, all the things that sound logical until you realize what they cost. And I let her, because sometimes people need to hear themselves out loud, need to say everything out loud before they understand what it actually means. When she finished, I didn't respond immediately. I just looked at her, not with anger, not with resentment, but with something stronger, final understanding. And in that moment, I made my decision. And I didn't need to say much. Not emotionally, not impulsively, but clearly. And once that decision is made, there's no need to argue. I won't be part of this anymore. That was the only thing I needed to say. Simple, direct, no explanation attached. Because I didn't owe one. Not after everything. Not after years of living inside something. That wasn't fully true. And that sentence wasn't loud. But it carried weight. Because it wasn't a reaction. It was a boundary. She looked at me differently then. Not confused, not defensive, but aware. Because for the first time, she understood what she was losing. Not control, not the story. Me, and some realizations. Come too late to fix. When I stood up, I didn't pack anything. Didn't gather memories. Didn't take objects. And sometimes, leaving empty-handed is the clearest way to take your life back. Because what matters isn't what you carry. It's what you stop carrying. As I walked out, I didn't look back. Not because I was strong, but because I was done. The truth didn't follow me. It stayed there, in that house, with her. Because it was never mine to carry. It was hers. Always was. The hardest part wasn't finding out who I was. It was accepting it. It was accepting that the person who raised me wasn't who I thought she was. But the most powerful part? Realizing that my life was still mine. Not defined by her decisions, not shaped by her lies, but rebuilt by my choices. And sometimes, the strongest revenge isn't exposing someone, it's walking away and never needing them again. If this story stayed with you, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and tell me in the comments. Be honest. Would you have confronted her or just walked away? I read every single comment, And there's another story waiting for you on your screen. I'll see you there.